The Boston Celtics dominated most of this game, and they are able to take advantage of home court as Game 4 is ready. Now, for the majority of this game and majority of the first half, you could definitely tell that Boston dominated early. Boston wanted to set a tone throughout the entire game because they had an issue with blowing leads. So they wanted to set the tone early, and that's what they did with great transition offense and great transition defense. There's actually a stat for the Celtics that the Celtics have never lost back-to-back playoff games. Like in this year's playoff, they've never lost back-to-back. And for Golden State, they are 3-4 on the road in the playoffs, which now 3-5. But for the Boston Celtics, they were great on both ends of the floor. They played really good paint defense. They were very good with blocking shots and playing off ball. They did a lot of press coverage. It was a lot different from game 1. And they just played their game, and they played it to perfection. Now, I would say this game is more of a game of runs. Both teams went on numerous runs. Boston went on 8-0 runs. Warriors went on a lot of runs, especially in the second half, but the defense really set the tone, especially because Boston won. They were able to get in transition. They were able to score faster, and while the Warriors were complaining to the refs, and this really set them apart this game. The Warriors more so dominated in the third quarter. They went on runs. They scored 33 points to Boston's 25. It was mainly Curry and Clay, but they were able to go on a lot of quick runs, but Boston easily responded back. Boston was just hitting more shots. Even with the good defense the Warriors played, Boston was able to make a lot of tougher shots. They were swinging the ball more than the Warriors. The Warriors were really trying to get Clay and Curry wide open, which is understandable, but Boston was really setting up for their teammates and guys who were hot. I think the big reasoning for the Celtics' dominance in this game is the more bench help they got. Or, well, not bench help, but the more impact their role players gave them. Guys like Robert Williams, Grant Williams, and Derek White, they all provided a spark. When the offense went stale, when the defense went stale, they provided this spark for the Boston Celtics. The Warriors, on the other hand, they have a lot of guys on the older side, but they have a lot of guys that cater towards a certain player. Like Draymond, for example, his type of game caters to someone like Curry and Clay. And when you're only shooting with those two guys, which is understandable, they are the best players on the team, but when you only cater to a certain player on the offense, it's really hard to win a game. I mean, it's possible, but it's really hard to win a game, as you saw in Game 2 when the offense catered towards Brown and Tatum, and they lost that game because they got cold and nobody else could hit a shot. Now, I don't know if this is true, but after the series was tied 1-1, I saw a lot of executives and I saw a lot of different stats, and apparently the Boston Celtics, for majority of the media, have an 88% chance to win compared to Golden State's 12% chance. I don't know how true that is, but it seems like a lot of people were leaning towards the Warriors, but now after the series was tied, people are now swinging to Boston. And I mean, that just goes to show how the media can flip everything. I mean, Golden State was the favorites, I guess you could say, but now Boston is apparently the favorites. Media can really change a lot, and I've mentioned this in previous videos. I mean, let's look at the interviews that the Golden State Warriors did. Clay and Draymond emphasized the fans in Boston, and the fans in Boston have gotten a bad rep. Cities like that, cities like Philly and New York, they've gotten bad reps. But I don't know. I just thought it was funny that Clay and Draymond mentioned like the cussing from the Boston fans with like kids around. I mean, there's almost 20,000 fans in each arena. It's bound to happen no matter if there's kids or not. Overall, what I felt happened was nothing too special. I think the Golden State played their game and the Celtics played their game, but the Celtics were more dominant early, and they started to get out in transition more, and they just played better. Their role players stepped up compared to the Warriors. This game felt like a more media driven game, as in like people were more focused on what the players had to say instead of the actual game. But I feel like we've seen games like this from the Warriors and the Celtics. This game felt like more of a game one feel from the Celtics compared to game two. But I think both teams played their game, and of course both teams can get better, but we'll just have to see what happens in the next game.